Hike with me while we talk about financial independence. For the majority of people, they will work until they die. And you can see it pretty clearly in how the system in America and Canada and the Western world is set up. You can accept that fact and say, hey, because of that, I'm not going to try. Or what you can do is say, hey, these are the rules of the game. I'm going to play and then I'm going to win. And I guess I've never really explicitly said why I care so much about financial independence. And this story starts with my mom. My mom was an immigrant, escaped Vietnam right before the war started, a refugee camp in China for like, I think a year. On her birth certificate, lied to say she was younger so that she could go to school, studied to become a French teacher, and now she's fluent in both. And I know zero French, which shows you how great I am at language skills. Now, the reason that I bring this up is because if it weren't for luck in my mom being a teacher and having a defined pension plan, my mom would have to work until the day she died, probably. The reason for that is we never went into debt or anything like that, but she didn't know a thing about investments. I mean, like, how could you expect someone to, right? When they come from a third world country, escaping war, not knowing English, it doesn't make any sense. How would she figure that out? And to me, that was crazy because I knew that my mom had a mortgage, there was a lot of money left on it, and that like she had to work for X amount of years before she could retire. Why is it fair that you had to go through all of this and then not be able to live a life that you want to live? One thing led to another. I started reading more books, started getting really very interested in money and like the idea of money and what it does for you. So yeah, the story of my mom kind of propelled me to find, I guess, the idea of FIRE and figure out retirement, especially to kind of help her out and like kind of plan for how she's going to retire. And that's kind of where it started, but not where it's going to end. This is giving like Taylor Swift Evermore. Morning. Good morning. Having such a fun day walking my dogs. This weirdo in a yellow jacket looking like Paddington talking about 401ks, a weirdo. I'm no philosophist or whatever, but what is your self-fulfillment? If your self-fulfillment is, raising a family, I think that's better off with FIRE. If you can retire early or earlier, that's more time spent with your kids, more time leading the next generation of your kin, or if you want to call it. If your passion is art, yeah, you can do art. The thing that's stopping all of us right now is the fact that we need a roof over our heads, the fact that we need food on our table. Once you remove those limitations, those factors, just the meaning of your day-to-day changes. And that's another thing that I've kind of struggled with FIRE, if I'm being real. Like, I've been investing since I was 18 years old. And the goal for me has always been, to retire early or earlier than normal. But what am I going to do when I retire, right? Like, what is that life? What does day-to-day look for me? And sometimes I think that I may be too caught up in chasing the goal that I'm forgetting to, smell the flowers. And part of building the life that you want for FIRE and life that you want with financial independence is having the life you want currently, right? Because what if I were to do all of this grind and like literally on this hike I fell and I died, I cracked my neck? And what was the point of all of it? To bring it back to my mom, I think when I first moved, she's like, why are you moving? She's like, oh, you're gonna die. There's so much gun violence there. Which is true. I lived like 21 years in Canada. Never heard a gunshot in my life. Moved to the US. First like 3 months, I heard multiple gunshots. And I'm still alive today. But yeah, anyways, when I was moving, my mom really didn't want me to move. She was like, hey man, you can make a lot of money in Canada, live at home, live rent free, blah, 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 blah. I had this silly, and if I'm being honest, a little bit silly, a little bit dumb notion that I could retire my parents. I told my mom in like different words, I was like, hey, like I need to be able to provide for this family. Like you're getting older, I want you to retire. You shouldn't be working anymore. I gotta clutch up so that I can provide later on when she retires. Because her pension may not be enough, right? And then this is also not considering my dad, who may work until he dies, but for a different reason. He just enjoys it. All these different things I'm thinking to myself, right? But I told my mom that. She's like, why do you care about all of that? I don't care that you make a lot of money. I don't care that, you see all this stuff. I just want you to be happy. Despite her situation is why I got into investing. But yeah, her saying that made me realize, not at the moment, but now thinking about it, I'm like, yeah, I'm not like super happy in Seattle. I don't know what it has for me aside from like these crazy views. View check, by the way. I've been living here for 3 years, and to be honest, majority of the time I don't think I've been super happy. When I graduated from university, I got an offer to work in Seattle, and the offer was better than anything that I would have gotten in Canada, I think. For sure, moving to Seattle was the right move financially, right move for my career. But now that I've been here for 3 years, don't know if it's been the right move for me personally. Like, would I have just been happier had I stayed home? Maybe, maybe not. That's kind of what I've learned in the past year, I guess, that to me, FIRE is still very important. I wholeheartedly believe that to win at the game is to not play it. Best way to not play it is to invest while you're young and invest early and invest often, because that's how the math works. I've also learned that the journey matters just as much as the end destination. There's no point in me saving, scrimping and saving if the life that I live day to day sucks, because you could always die tomorrow. I don't know if that convinced you at all to start thinking a little bit more about your future, but I know many people may watch this video, some may like whatever, but very few are going to take action. That's a very privileged take. A lot of people don't have that opportunity. A lot of people are born into a set of circumstances that are unfair to them and can't take the opportunity that you watching might necessarily have. So that's why I think you honestly really owe it to yourself, and owe it to, not to yourself, your parents who worked hard to put you where you are, or maybe they didn't work hard to put you where you are, and you owe it to yourself to prove them wrong. Just by watching this video or videos like this, I think you've already cleared that percentage of people that at least care about this. But are you the percentage of people that are going to do something about it? I do this on TikTok all the time, right? Like, you like something, you favorite something, and then you end up taking no action on it. And I think that's worse, right? Having this idea of doing something but not doing it. I think if you want something, you have to do it. You gotta like at least put it in action. Now, enough about philosophy. Let's talk about the actionable steps that you can take. And I guess the most important thing is you have to budget. Like, as much as it kind of sucks, but you need to know how much is coming in, how much is coming out, for two very important reasons. Number one, to figure out how much you need to live. That's important for later. And number two is to figure out how much you're spending, where you can cut back, and how much more you can invest, or how much you can invest. Step two is, once you figure out that number, how much your yearly spending is, you now have to figure out how much you need to sustain yourself long term. So the way that people usually do this is they do something called the 4% rule, where they take their total net worth, or their total assets that are sellable or liquidable, and they take 4% of that. So say, for example, you had $1 million, 4% of that is $40,000. That means that every year you could pull $40,000 without your initial balance ever running out. Now, the reason this works is because on average, the stock market is going to return more than 4%. Now, obviously, your portfolio doesn't always grow. There are times of downturn, etc., and that's when FIRE gets a little bit more complicated. But the main crux, the main idea of FIRE is to invest enough where your assets are making more than you need to live year by year, and then, sell some of those assets and use that. Okay, so we made it to the end. I'm a bit more wet than I was when I started. Also, check the fit, by the way, Gore-Tex. Very misty, but honestly, it's kind of cool. It's my overall thoughts. Tried to tell you a little bit more about myself so you get my perspective and see why I think like that. So take what I say with a big grain of salt, and hopefully you find what's right for you. If you like the video, please consider liking and subscribing. If you want to see more videos, I'll let YouTube recommend one for me today. Other than that, later.